So if we can just linger on Twitter and Elon before I would love to talk to you about the underlying business model of Wikipedia, which is this brilliant, bold move at the very beginning. But since you mentioned Twitter, what do you think works? What do you think is broken about Twitter?
Oof. I mean, it's a long conversation, but to start with, one of the things that I always say is it's a really hard problem. So I concede that right up front. I said this about, the old ownership of Twitter and the new ownership of Twitter, because unlike Wikipedia, and this is true actually for all social media, there's a box, and the box basically says, what do you think? What's on your mind? You can write whatever the hell you want, right? This is true, by the way, even for YouTube. I mean, the box is to upload a video, but again, it's just like an open-ended invitation to express yourself. And what makes that hard is some people have really toxic, really bad, some people are very aggressive. They're actually stalking. They're actually, abusive. And suddenly you deal with a lot of problems. Whereas at Wikipedia, there is no box that says, what's on your mind? There's a box that says, this is an entry about the moon. Please be neutral. Please cite your facts. Then there's a talk page, which is not coming rant about Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
If you go on the talk page of the Donald Trump entry and you just start ranting about Donald Trump, people would say, what are you doing? Like, stop doing that. Like, we're not here to discuss, like, there's a whole world of the internet out there for you to go and rant about Donald Trump.
It's just not fun to do on Wikipedia. It somehow is fun on Twitter.
Well, also on Wikipedia, people are going to say, stop.
Yeah.
And actually, are you here to tell us, like, how can we improve the article? Or are you just here to rant about Trump? Because that's not actually interesting. So because the goal is different, so that's just admitting and saying up front, this is a hard problem. Certainly, I'm writing a book on trust. So the idea is, in the last 20 years, we've lost trust, in all kinds of institutions, in politics. The Edelman Trust Barometer survey has been done for a long time. And, trust in politicians, trust in journalism, it's declined substantially. And I think in many cases, deservedly. So how do we restore trust, and how do we think about that?
And does that also include trust in the idea of truth?
Trust in the idea of truth, like even the concept of facts and truth is really, really important, and the idea of uncomfortable truths is really important. No, so when we look at Twitter, right, and we can see, okay, this is really hard. So here's my story about Twitter. It's a two-part story, and it's all pre-Elon Musk ownership. So many years back, somebody accused me of horrible crimes on Twitter, and I, like anybody would, I was like, I'm in the public eye. People say bad things. I don't really, I brush it off, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, this is actually really bad. Like, accusing me of pedophilia, like, that's just not okay. So I thought, I'm going to report this. So I click report, and I report the tweet, and there's 5 others, and I go through the process, and then I get an email that says, whatever, a couple hours later saying, thank you for your report. We're looking into this. Great. Okay, good. Then several hours further, I get an email back saying, sorry, we don't see anything here to violate our terms of use. And I'm like, okay. So I email Jack, mm-hmm. and I say, Jack, come on, like, this is ridiculous. And he emails back roughly saying, yeah, sorry, Jimmy, don't worry, we'll sort this out. And I just thought to myself, you know what? That's not the point, right? I'm Jimmy Wales. I know Jack Dorsey. I can email Jack Dorsey. He'll listen to me because he's got an email from me, mm-hmm. and sorts it out for me. What about the teenager who's being bullied and is getting abuse, right? And getting accusations that aren't true? Are they getting the same kind of, like, really poor result in that case? Mm-hmm. So fast forward a few years, same thing happens. The exact quote goes, please help me. I'm only 10 years old and Jimmy Wales raped me last week. It's like, come on, fuck off. Like, that's ridiculous. So I report, and I'm like, this time I'm reporting, but I'm thinking, well, we'll see what happens. This one gets even worse, because then I get same result, email back saying, sorry, we don't see any problems. So I raise it with other members of the board who I know, and Jack, and I'm like, this is really ridiculous. Like, this is outrageous. And some of the board members, friends of mine, sympathetic, and so good for them. But I actually got an email back then from the general counsel, head of trust and safety saying, actually, there's nothing in this tweet that violates our terms of service. We don't regard, and gave reference to the Me Too movement. If we didn't allow accusations, the Me Too movement, it's an important thing. And I was like, you know what? Actually, if someone says I'm 10 years old and someone raped me last week, I think the advice should be, here's the phone number of the police. Like, you need to get the police involved. Twitter's not the place for that accusation. So even back then, by the way, they did delete those tweets, but I mean, the rationale they gave is spammy behavior.
Right.
So completely separate from abusing me, it was just like, oh, well, they were retweeting too often. Okay, whatever. So like, that's just broken. Like, that's a system that it's not working for people in the public eye. I'm sure it's not working for private people who get abuse. Really horrible abuse can happen. So how is that today? Well, it hasn't happened to me since Elon took over, but I don't see why it couldn't. And I suspect now if I send a report and email someone, there's no one there to email me back because he's gotten rid of a lot of the trust and safety staff. So I suspect that problem is still really hard.
Just content moderation at huge scales.
At huge scales is really something. And I don't know the full answer to this. I mean, a piece of it could be, to say actually making specific allegations of crimes. This isn't the place to do that. We've got a huge database. If you've got an accusation of crime, here's who you should call: the police, the FBI, whatever it is. It's not to be done in public. And then you do face really complicated questions about Me Too movement and people coming forward in public and all of that. But it's like, probably you should talk to a journalist, right? Probably there are better avenues than just tweeting from an account that was created 10 days ago, obviously set up to abuse someone. So I think they could do a lot better. But I also admit it's a hard problem.
And there's also ways to indirectly or more humorously or more mocking way to make the same kinds of accusations. In fact, the accusations you mentioned, if I were to guess, don't go that viral because they're not funny enough or cutting enough. But if you make it witty and cutting and meme it somehow, sometimes actually indirectly make an accusation versus directly make an accusation. That can go viral and that can destroy reputations. And you get to watch yourself. Just all kinds of narratives take hold.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember another case that didn't bother me because it wasn't of that nature. But somebody was saying, I'm sure you're making millions off of Wikipedia. And I'm like, no, actually, I don't even work there. I have no salary. And they're like, you're lying. I'm going to check your 990 form, which is the US form for tax reporting for charities. And I was like, here's the link. Go read it and you'll see. I'm listed as a board member and my salary is listed as 0. So, things like that. It's like, okay, that feels like you're wrong, but I can take that and we can have that debate quite quickly. And again, it didn't go viral because it was kind of silly. And if anything would have gone viral, it was me responding. But that's one where it's like, actually, I'm happy to respond because a lot of people don't know that I don't work there and that I don't make millions and I'm not a billionaire. Well, they must know that because it's in most of the news media about me. But the other one I didn't respond to publicly because it's like Barbra Streisand effect. It's like sometimes calling attention to someone who's abusing you who basically has no followers and so on is just a waste.
And everything you're describing now is just something that all of us have to kind of learn because everybody's in the public eye. I think when you have just 2 followers and you get bullied by one of the followers, it hurts just as much as when you have a large number. So it's not your situation, I think, is echoed in the situations of millions of other, especially teenagers and kids and so on.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually an example. So we don't generally use my picture in the banners anymore on Wikipedia, but we did. And then we did an experiment one year where we tried other people's pictures. So one of our developers and, one guy, lovely, very sweet guy. And he doesn't look like your immediate thought of a nerdy Silicon Valley developer. He looks like a heavy metal dude because he's cool. And so suddenly here he is with long hair and tattoos, and there's his sort of say, here's what your money goes for. Here's my letter asking for support. And he got massive abuse from Wikipedia, like calling him creepy and like really massive. And this was being shown to 80 million people a day. His picture, not the abuse, right? The abuse was elsewhere on the internet. And he was bothered by it. And I thought, you know what? There is a difference. I actually am in the public eye.
Yeah.
I get huge benefits from being in the public eye. I go around and make public speeches. If any random thing I think of, I can write and get it published in the New York Times and, have this interesting life. He's not a public figure. And so actually, he wasn't mad at us. He wasn't mad. It was just like, actually suddenly being thrust in the public eye and you get suddenly lots of abuse, which normally, if you're a teenager and somebody in your class is abusing you, it's not going to go viral. So it's going to be hurtful because it's local and it's your classmates or whatever. But when sort of ordinary people go viral in some abusive way, it's really, really quite tragic.
I don't know. I mean, even at a small scale, it feels viral. When five people,
you're right. Yeah,
people at your school, and there's a rumor, and there's this feeling like you're surrounded, and nobody, and the feeling of loneliness, I think, which you're speaking to, when you don't have when you at least feel like you don't have a platform to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And then this powerlessness that I think a lot of teenagers definitely feel, and a lot of people.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And that, I think even when just like two people make up stuff about you or lie about you or say mean things about you or bully you, that can feel like a crowd.
Yeah. No,
I mean, whatever that is in our genetics and our biology and the way our brain works, it just can be a terrifying experience. And somehow to correct that, I mean, I think because everybody feels the pain of that, everybody suffers the pain of that, I think we'll be forced to fix that as a society to figure out a way around that.
I think it's really hard to fix because I don't think that problem isn't necessarily new. Someone in high school who writes graffiti that says Becky is a slut and spreads a rumor about what Becky did last weekend. That's always been damaging. It's always been hurtful, and that's really hard.
Those kinds of attacks are as old as time itself. They precede the internet. What do you think about this technology that feels Wikipedia-like, which is community notes on Twitter? Do you like it? Pros and cons. Do you think it's scalable?
I do like it. I don't know enough about specifically how it's implemented to really have a very deep view, but I do think it's the uses I've seen of it, I've found quite good, and in some cases, changed my mind. It's like I see something, and of course, the sort of human tendency is to retweet something that you hope is true or that you are afraid is true, or it's like that kind of quick mental action. And then I saw something that I liked and agreed with, and then a community note under it that made me think, oh, actually, this is a more nuanced issue. So I like that. I think that's really important. Now, how is it specifically implemented? Is it scalable? All that I don't really know how they've done it, so I can't really comment on that. But in general, I do think it's when your only mechanisms on Twitter, and you're a big Twitter user. We know the platform, and you've got plenty of followers and all of that. The only mechanisms are retweeting, replying, blocking. It's a pretty limited scope, and it's kind of good if there's a way to elevate a specific thoughtful response. And it kind of goes to, again, like, does the algorithm just pick the retweet or retweeting, it's not even the algorithm that makes it viral. Like, if Paulo Coelho, very famous author, I think he's got I don't know, I haven't looked lately. He used to have 8 million Twitter followers. I think I looked, he's got 16 million now or whatever. Well, if he retweets something, it's going to get seen a lot. Or Elon Musk, if he retweets something, it's going to get seen a lot. That's not an algorithm. That's just the way the platform works. So it is kind of nice if you have something else. And how that something else is designed, that's obviously a complicated question.
Well, there's this interesting thing that I think Twitter is doing, but I know Facebook is doing for sure, which is really interesting. So you have, what are the signals that a human can provide at scale? Like, in Twitter, it's retweet.
Yep.
In Facebook, I think you can share. I forget, but there's basic interactions. You can have comment and so on.
Yeah.
But there's also in Facebook, and YouTube has this too, is would you like to see more of this or would you like to see less of this? They post that sometimes. And the thing that the neural net that's learning from that has to figure out is the intent behind you saying, I want to see less of this?
Mhm.
Did you see too much of this content already? You like it, but you don't want to see so much of it.
Mhm.
You've already figured it out. Great. Or does this content not make you feel good? There's so many interpretations, so I'd like to see
For
less of
sure.
this. But if you get that kind of signal, that actually can create a really powerfully curated list of content that is fed to you every day. That doesn't create an echo chamber or a silo,
For
but
sure.
actually just makes you feel
Mhm.
good
Yeah.
in the good way, which is like it challenges you, but it doesn't exhaust you
Yeah.
and make you kind
Yeah.
of this
Now,
this this weird animal.
I've been saying for a long time, if I went on Facebook one morning and they said, "Oh, we're testing a new option," rather than showing you things we think you're going to like, we want to show you some things that we think you will disagree with, but which we have some signals that suggest it's of quality. I'm like, now that sounds interesting,
Yeah, that
right?
sounds really
I
interesting.
want to see something where, like, oh, I don't agree with. So Larry Lessig is a good friend of mine, founder of Creative Commons, and he's moved on to doing stuff about corruption in politics and so on. And I don't always agree with Larry, but I always grapple with Larry because he's so interesting and he's so thoughtful that even when we don't agree, I'm like, actually, I want to hear him out,
Hmm.
right? Because I'm going to learn from it. And that doesn't mean I always come around to agreeing with him, but I'm going to understand a perspective better. And that's really a great feeling.
Yeah, there's this interesting thing on social media where people kind of accuse others of saying, well, you don't want to hear opinions that you disagree with or ideas you disagree with. I think this is something that's thrown at me all the time.
Mm.
The reality is there's literally almost nothing I enjoy more
It's even an
than,
odd thing to accuse you of because you have quite a wide range of long conversations with a very diverse bunch of people.
but
So.
there is a very there is like a very harsh drop off, because what I like is high quality disagreement that really makes
Yeah.
me think.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, there's a threshold. It's a kind of a gray area when the quality of the disagreement, it just sounds like mocking, and you're not really interested in a deep understanding of the topic, or you yourself don't seem to carry deep understanding of the topic. Like there's something called intelligence squared debates.
Yeah.
The main one is the British version with a British accent. Everything always sounds better, and the Brits seem to argue more intensely. Like they're invigorated, they're energized by the debate. Those people, I often disagree with basically everybody involved, and it's so fun. I
Yeah.
learned something. That's high quality. If we
Yeah.
could do that, if there's some way for me to click a button that says filter out lower quality just today. Just sometimes show it to me because I want to be able to. But today,
Yeah.
I'm just not in the mood
It's
for the
awesome.
mockery.
Yeah.
Just high quality stuff. Even because
Mhm.
even flat Earth, I want to get high quality arguments for the flat Earth. It would make me feel good
Mm.
because I would see, oh, that's really interesting. Like I never really thought in my mind to challenge the mainstream narrative of of general relativity, right? Of a perception of physics. Maybe all of reality, maybe all of space time is an illusion. That's really interesting. I never really thought about. Let me consider that fully. Okay, what's the evidence? How do you test that? What are the alternatives? How would you be able to have such consistent perception of a physical reality if it's all of it is an illusion? All of us seem to share the same kind of perception of reality. Like what? Like that's the kind of stuff I
Yeah.
love, but
No, I
not
love
like
it.
the mockery of it. You
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
the cheap that it seems that social media can kind of inspire.
Yeah. I talk sometimes about how people assume that like the big debates in Wikipedia or the sort of arguments are between the party of the left and the party of the right. And I would say, no, it's actually the party of the kind and thoughtful and the party of the jerks
Mhm.
is really it. I mean, left and right, like, yeah, bring me somebody I disagree with politically, as long as they're thoughtful, kind, we're gonna have a real discussion. I give an example of um, our article on abortion. So, if you can bring together a kind and thoughtful Catholic priest and a kind and thoughtful Planned Parenthood activist, and they're going to work together on the article on abortion, that can be a really great thing if they're both kind and thoughtful. Like, that's the important part. They're never going to agree on the topic, but they will understand, okay, like, Wikipedia is not going to take a side. but Wikipedia is going to explain what the debate is about, and we're going to try to characterize it fairly. And it turns out, like, your kind and thoughtful people, even if they're quite ideological, like a Catholic priest is generally going to be quite ideological on the subject of abortion, but they can grapple with ideas and they can discuss, and they may feel very proud of the entry at the end of the day, not because they suppress the other side's views, but because they think the case has been stated very well that other people can come to understand it. And if you're highly ideological, you assume, I think naturally, if people understood as much about this as I do, they'll probably agree with me. You may be wrong about that, but that's often the case. So that's where, that's what I think we need to encourage more of in society generally, is grappling with ideas in a really, thoughtful way.